There's some good news out today on the labor front. Think Progress reports, quote, President Obama called for the passage of the Healthy Families Act, a bill that would require most employers to give workers paid sick leave. The legislation calls for businesses with 15 or more employees to let them accrue up to 7 paid sick days a year to care for themselves or a family member who falls ill. The leave could also be used by victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking to recover or seek assistance. Obama will also urge states and local governments to pass sick leave laws of their own. And then they finally say the president will also sign a memorandum that will ensure federal employees get at least 6 weeks of paid sick leave for the arrival of a new child, and propose that Congress pass legislation to give them 6 weeks of paid administrative leave as well. So as of right now, only 3 states, California, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, have passed paid sick leave legislation. Also, there are 16 cities that have paid sick leave legislation. The U.S. overall, we are just one of 3 countries that doesn't require paid maternity leave. And by the way, 70 other countries also require paid paternity leave. I mean, that's like, in America, they'd scoff at you if you even mention it. You bring up the idea of paternity. Paternity leave, that's hilarious. Obviously, the man doesn't have to do anything to take care of the kid. That's the woman's job. So we are really, really lagging behind on the issue of time off across the board. In fact, I want to go ahead and show this chart again. This is one of my favorite charts to discuss. This is paid annual leave and paid holidays by law. All of the modern industrial nations here. I don't know if you could see, on the corner of that chart there, see the country that has 0? Oh, yes, that would be the United States of America. Every other country treats their people in a decent way and gives them some paid time off. America, not at all. That's such an amazing chart because it really shows you that on the issue of treating workers in a decent way and having basic social safety nets, the U.S. really is the most right-wing of all the modern industrial nations. I mean, it really is crazy when it's put in front of you in such a black and white way like that. We get 0 paid days off. Everybody else gets plenty. Welcome to America. So, again, to show you just how screwed Americans are on the issue of our work and leisure balance, quote, on April 6th, 1933, the Black-Connery Bill had passed in the United States Senate by a wide margin. The bill fixed the official American work week at 5 days and 30 hours. 30 hours? 30 hours is like half of the work week. There was a time, 1933, April 6, 1933, the Senate passed a 30-hour work week. We almost had a system in America that was much more like a social democracy, much more like the Scandinavian region, where people are treated in a decent way and we view our work and leisure balance as important, and we tried to make it much closer to 50-50 as opposed to just working all the time and selling out to your corporate overlords. But it turns out that instead of implementing that, FDR, who usually we love, he did many good things, right? Not here, because Roosevelt chose to do the Fair Labor Standards Act instead, which created New Deal spending. Well, New Deal was good, but a 40-hour work week along with that. We could have had 30, man. 30 passed the Senate. We were so close to a 30-hour work week. But we ended up getting 40, and the reality is, what is it? The average American worker works way more than 40. It's like 47 or something like that. And my favorite fact, you ready for this? This is a New York Times headline on July 31st, 1910. How long should a man's vacation be? President Taft, a Republican, mind you, says everyone should have 3 months. So in 1910, it was the Republican position that every worker should get 3 months off. Today, if a Democrat proposed that, they would be called a communist and laughed out of town. the spectrum has shifted so insanely far to the right on this issue where we've just kind of passively accepted that we live in a corporatist society. We've passively accepted the idea that you really don't get time to recharge your batteries and spend time with your family and your friends and pursue your passions outside of work, and you have enough time to do so and read books and do a picnic out in the sunlight in the afternoon in the park. I mean, all that stuff, like, okay, here, you have 2 days to do it. Of course, everybody knows that one of the days that you have off, what are you doing? You're working, right? You're basically doing shit to keep the house in order or do some shopping, or so you really have like 1 day off, kind of, maybe, right? And then in that day, you're also stressing about the next day, and it's too fucking much. It's too much. Even if you love your job, it's a hard thing to work 5 days and then have 2 days off. I know, because that's essentially what I do. But for somebody who doesn't love their job, which is the majority of the American people, right? They just do it to get a paycheck. For them to work 5 days and then have 2 days off, it's like, fuck this, man. This is horrendous. We gotta get back to a system that has a fair balance. I've discussed this before, but everybody knows who listens to the show, I'm not a revolutionary, right? So what that means is I'm not one of these people who's like, you know, abolish the state, bro, and then make it so that there is no difference between work and leisure and stuff, bro. But okay, but that's you're being somewhat naive and you're being a little too utopian. I don't think that's possible. And I think most people would understand that, yeah, in order for people to fucking pick up the garbage and be the cashiers and do the shit that nobody really wants to do, we kind of have to have division of labor. We kind of have to have people, when they work, a lot of people are going to do shit that they don't like. And people are willing to accept that to a certain extent. But their response is, all right, at least pay me a living wage, number one. And number two, give me fucking a decent amount of time off. Since my job is not my passion, you have to allow me to have enough time to chase down my passions in my off time. It's really not asking that much. And other modern industrial nations have sided heavily with, okay, let's treat them fairly. Let's keep the system in place, but treat them fairly, whereas the U.S. is lagging far behind. Look, Obama's pushing back against this a little bit, but it's definitely not enough. I mean, he's throwing a bone out there to the American people. It's kind of like Obamacare was. The system still sucks, but here's something a little bit better. You know, hey, you still got to work all the fucking time and then you die, but here's something a little bit better. So it's a start, but in all seriousness, the end goal should be at least 6 weeks paid vacation by law, or I would prefer the norm becoming a 4-day work week.